Hi, I'm Grishma Kuttar, and you're listening to episode 11 of Mission Manipur, a frontline podcast that looks in detail at the Manipur conflict. This episode is titled Another 6 Months? Question mark. Less than a week after President's rule was extended in Manipur, an independent People's Tribunal put together by the PUCL, which is the People's Union of Civil Liberties, has released their report on what they think is the cause of the Manipur violence. This detailed report has many parts to it, but primarily the tribunal locates the cause of the violence to be an ethnic divide created by state actors. I hope to interview one of the jury members to understand what their findings are and what they propose as a solution. But before that, I want to take us all back to Manipur, where President's rule has been extended for another 6 months. When you travel through the different districts in Manipur, what you'll notice is that there is no marked change. The multiple checkposts manned by security forces between Bishnupur and Churchandpur, the district where the violence started, are still in place. This area, which is a buffer zone that either communities cannot cross, remains as tense as it has been in all these months. Similarly, the conversations in the valley or the hills aren't any less tense. People I speak to do say they are fed up, but the people in the valley still want to think of the Kukizo tribes as illegal, and the people in the hills are far from recovering from the violence they faced in the initial days of the conflict. What happened after these months is a blur for everybody, but here we are in a divided state that still has leaders that seem to only want to maximize on this conflict. Take the former Chief Minister Biren Singh, for instance. Even after being made to resign much later than he should have, he has refused to give up on his inflammatory language. The problem is, like many in the state ask, nobody cares enough to hold anybody accountable to set things straight in the state. Anyway, for this episode, I have interviewed two individuals who have, in their own capacity, waded through this violence in whatever way they can while trying their best to help people directly affected by the violence. First, I would like to share the interview of Birju Rekha, who is a journalist and a social worker based in Imphal. Birju has faced many problems herself while trying to report from the valley, but she, along with her friends at ETA Northeast, have tried their best to create livelihood opportunities for displaced people located in relief camps in Imphal Valley. Let us listen to what she thinks about the extension of President's rule and what that means for Manipur. So, Biju, after 6 months of President's rule and more than 2 years of this violence, conflict, and Manipur turning into something that is almost unrecognizable, you can say, right, compared to how it was before. Now, President's rule has been extended by another 6 months. What has the response been like in the valley? Are people like the expectations with President's rule is that it would eventually move back into a formation of a government, right? So what are people saying in the valley?
Yeah, it's a very mixed reaction from different kind of people. That the common people, like when we engage with the people staying in the relief camp or just the street dwellers who are just saying they don't seems to get any impact on what is happening. Either it's a president rules or government, it's a popular government, but the many civil society or the political groups and many other, they are just against the extension of this president rule. Public are demanding, there's a section of the people who are demanding that the popular governments should return, and lots of movement have been going for that also. But even within the 6 months and again extending, even within the president rule also, what the general expectation that people have that there will be some drastic changes during the president rules, that is also not visible yet. we're expecting more during the president rules, but the relief camp people, they are still having a very deplorable condition, still staying in the relief camp. Their conditions are still very poor, very bad. So extending for 6 months, and if during this, if they can resolve the crisis that has been happening for more than 2 years, if there is some kind of solution that they can bring up, so that kind of response, that kind of tangible some solution, it's not visible yet.
Right. But in the last 6 months, what is the governor? He's taken a he's been saying a lot of things that they are trying to do. He's been saying that we are trying to, whatever the lags have been there in the education system or in general economy, this, that, all of those things. He's saying that he's trying to fix. At least there have been many press releases. But on the ground, what have you seen in the last 6 months? Like visibly, what has changed, or has anything changed?
See, the condition of the Manipur, it's already so fragile, and in terms of development also, it's very backward. The road conditions are very bad. Most of the institutions, they need proper infrastructure, more development that's required. The governor, we have seen the visiting many institutions. Let's say he's very active in a sense, and participating the events for public and keeping in touch with on the grassroots level organizations, and also civil societies, and like he's doing a lot. But within the 6 months, it's not easy to see some kind of drastic change. But might be in the process. We have seen some commitment to uplift, to improve the condition of the road. He have given an assurance, and for the institutions like MTU, and when he visit, he planned to upgrade the status of the universities also. And but most important, it's going to take time, and the immediate requirement, like more than all the development things, the peace process, that were the most urgent things and the most priority that need to be focused. Like in this 6 months, any kind of effort that need to be taken, peace building, where some kind of negotiation where both the party wearing communities can meet together, that kind of initiatives, that is the major setback. Only once in the last month, this Thadao Inpi have visited Imphal. That was the first historical moment where all the civil societies of the Valley West met with the Thadao Inpi. There's also one fragment of the Kuki communities where they said that they are not a Kukis. And there was a meeting held in the Classic Grande, and more effort that was backed by the Home Minister. That's a proper arrangement for that.
And that was like they had support of the BJP as well, right?
Yes.
So how sincere that is something that we can think about. But in the peace process, all the groups that have been that have been the face of the communities for this long, I don't think there has been an effort to bring them together, right?
Yes, that effort is still missing. I don't know, in the backdrop of the what they're still trying, but that more kind of such effort, visible and tangible solution, that hope that we can coexist against, that kind of effort is yet to visualize now.
To be seen. Okay. Also, I think one of the major problems that we could all see while reporting here was how weaponized society was, right? I mean, I don't know whether it is now or not. Because, I mean, it's not visible now like it was, let's say, 6 months or so back. But has that, and because of how much weapons were present, there was also a lot of complaints from everybody about extortion, right? Everybody was the petrol bunk owners, or even teachers, nurses, they were all doing strikes about how the extortion demands are too much. Has at least these things changed?
Small vendors also.
Yeah, small vendors, street vendors, they were all striking. I remember there were so many protests, they were giving statements, they were giving representations. Has these things at least changed a little bit over the last 6 months?
The extortion cases was rampant during the crisis 2 years. It has been as a part of the media, drastically reduced to certain extents, and more they have taken some more stringent action against more, like we have seen a quick response to whatever complaints against extortion. People started complaining to that, and there is a fear psychosis to the people also. How much demand they're reluctant to do the police complaint, even though they have this anti-extortion cell. They're giving awareness everywhere that people public will complain, and they're so much focusing on that.
But there is a little bit of a hesitation to
Hesitation that-
approach the police.
Yeah, approach because from the people who have faced is like continuous kind of extortion threat. When we talk to them, they said how long they're going to protect. They have a fear of life, that they can do anything. That it's very common news in Manipur, like putting a bomb at their residents who haven't given their demands. This has been happening. So to complain is not to just complain. It's not an easy thing in Manipur.
Yeah, sure. What about, see, the reason why I brought this up is because somewhere extortion is also related to the economy, right? Like everything here in terms of the economy dropped. Inflation was so high. Everything, the cost of everything was 2 times, 3 times its original cost. And I'm just referring to essentials. Has that improved? What I mean is not just the economy or prices, but also employment. One of the things that is the result of the violence is that a lot of people from their homes and their primary occupation, which would have been agriculture, had to move into relief camps, right? That is people from valley to the hills and hills to the valley, which means that already the limited work options that are there, there would have been like a higher demand to take those jobs. So there must be a lot of there is a lot of unemployment. How is that being addressed? So one, economy, 2, joblessness in society.
Addressed by the
By authorities, the context in which I thought this bringing up this extortion is when there is so many extortion demands, people's purchasing power, whatever money to even employ somebody or to previous businesses had to shut down. So many such businesses shut down. So many people decided to rather not keep their business going than to because they didn't have the money to answer these extortion calls as well. So that means a drop in jobs as well, right? So I think, this is something that I understood over conversations with you guys as well, that there is no work here. People are migrating out. And generally the migration is high, but because of the violence and the resultant outcome, so much more migration happened, right? I know these are things that cannot be fixed in the short term, like 6 months is nothing. But how is the general employment scene like right now in the valley?
Yeah, as you said, now it's a fact that over the last 2 years, the migration level for the youth is very high. People are just going to other part of the state just to get any kind of job, and employment problems. Many of the establishment, many of the business has shut in these 2 years, and during the COVID phase also, already people were struggling with so much problems, and with this crisis, I've seen many people, like among the close friends also, who have shut their business and have to go outside to find a job. This has been happening, and these are for the general people staying in their at their home, respective they have at least their home. But for the relief camp people who have dreams to pursue their higher education outside, who have dreams to become something, it's a very disappointing to meet them, to interact with them. It's like they have lost a hope that they can become something. Just whatever the government has been doing, it's a minimal things to provide a food, every day just meal and a shelter. That's also a very congested area where there is no privacy and all. So for them, having an aspiration to become something, it's a very challenging thing. And some organization which are backing and doing at the grassroots level work, like I'm also associated with Ita Notice Women Network. So focusing mainly on the livelihood, what we can do about the youth, the youngster, to not lose their hope that whatever they wanted to become, in what way we can assist. And so these are mainly not, we are just focusing mainly that they don't stop their education, at least to pursue to to pursue higher education and whatever they have been dreaming. These scholars drop out and joining any kind of job, minimal job. Doing this, we have witnessed a lot, especially from the relief camp youth. But very in a very few ways, this out of all more than 60,000 people are relief camp, just few that we could just bring up and give hope to some of the groups, some of the people that we are closely associating with. And in this, the government and authority, they need to focus more. Just in the recently, they have started for this livelihood work, which they should have done much earlier during the initial time, instead of giving all this relief material and all whatever. The main focus should be the livelihood and
Income
the
generation.
income generation, and giving an hope that they can just start afresh, rather than victimizing them by providing the bare minimum. And then, so this was a mistake, I think. But now with the government we have seen that they are serious about providing the livelihood. They are taking a survey report and all that. What are the mapping, the skill mapping and all that, whatever ways they can intervene, they're trying that. I have seen that also. So they have also approached to ITA also to give them data on what are the requirement for the livelihood. So this is very late, I should say.
There was an announcement from the chief secretary or somebody from the administration that people are going to be resettled by December and relief camps are going to be dismantled. Is that something that is that can happen? Can all the people in relief camps be resettled? Is resettlement happening right now, to your knowledge?
The resettlement in a very few, not at a large scale. Just they're pushing some of the camp people wherever they feel safe. Like it's a very small pocket. Yeah, some of the whatever the promises that they're given for the rebuilding of their houses, 10 lakhs and all that. It's in the first installment only. Very few over in the Bisnupur district, like 60 houses. They said they have given all the installment to rebuild their houses, and this 75,000 rupees that they have promised for every household. That was also a crisis that the IDP says that how are they going to
Isn't that too
manage?
less?
Yeah, how are they going to manage with the 75,000 for all to just go back and stay again where everything was shattered, everything was lost. So this has been they have been protesting over the relief package that they are giving. The IDPs are not very happy with that.
But by December, do you think there will be sufficient work that this administration will do under the governor to resettle everybody? Is it possible?
It's not possible if they force it. I don't know in what way they are going to do it. In a very normal process, it's not possible because it's a huge number, and the resettlement is not an easy thing. The place where they have already, it's all they have lost everything. Even if the house was not, there are people whose house has not been burned down, but it's all, the conditions are all bad. It's all destroyed, like leaving the house for 2 years.
Yeah, the localities and all of that are gone, right?
Yeah, and it's not very safe also for them. Even the government pushed that they should go back. They don't feel safe to the place where to go back, and so many of them are saying that we are not going to go back, even if they force also, because it's not until they feel so safe and secure. The very for the place like More and Tiruchampur, it's not possible to just resettle in December. It's not. There is no peace process, whatever. There is no scene of the crisis ending very soon. We haven't seen that. And how are they going to resettle that? More focus should be on peace building peace process and assurance that there is not going to be any more violence. Only then the people will be ready, rather than forcing them to go back and resettle at their places that we will give security and all that. It's not very safe, and it's not going to work also.
Right. Also, this peace process, how much do you think people from both sides will be willing to sort of set aside what has happened and, decide that? Because there are contesting political demands, but it is also true that if the situation continues, the economy, the opportunities, everything is going to be not even bare minimum, it's going to go below bare minimum. Everybody stands to be affected if this is not resolved. That is, a viable peace option doesn't come up. But I mean, it's because it's been more than 2 years. How do you sense the, the response, or what do you sense is the mind space of people right now here in the valley? Like, are they fed up? Are they like, something needs to be done? But what is that something? Like, how is it that this, because I feel like, be it the governor or any of these leaders, nobody is directly, they are not saying anything, which is direct. It's like they're trying to take the stand where they're saying nothing. They're just saying we are doing everything to make things come back to normal. But it's like the elephant in the room is just being ignored. That there was this huge problem that happened. People have died. So many people were killed. All of these things, you can't just move past, right? Or can you?
Yeah, when they said that they're trying their best, I'm not very sure. I've even questioned it. How serious are they when these political leaders who are responsible to bring any kind of changes, political systems changes in the state, that they are not. I feel that they are not very serious in the word that they spoke. If they are, then they could have done so much at the power that they hold. They could have done so much rather than just saying that we are trying, we are giving this to just attending all the affected. They can at least work toward the root causes of that. More effort could have been done, and more responsible leaders in bridging the gap in already fragmented communities. They could have done a lot in bringing reconciliation for the state. That everyone wants Manipur to remain intact, that they won't compromise on the territorial integrities and all that. They're against the publics and the peoples are fighting that Manipur should remain intact, integrity should be there, that no one can separate. There is no, they're standing against the demand of the separate administration or separate state. But what exactly the work has been done? Because every part, the other side that they have been demanding, they are also the part of the state subjects that they need to address on time, rather than just standing on taking a side. This is quite visible in many of the, not all the, I'm not saying to all the leaders responsible, but more sensible and more inclusive approach could have reduced to the extent that it has damaged now. That is the reason that the crisis has been prolonged. They're not serious about the peace that they talk about.
They are not engaging with the intention of, okay, we have to address this, we have to immediately address this. It's like they're delaying it and dragging it, right?
Yes,
and to see,
attending to the affected people, they're just giving some medicines to the affected, not just looking beyond and working on the root causes. That what need to be done as a leaders, responsible leaders, that has been failed tremendously.
The other person that I spoke to is Jessica Moy, a writer and a leader from the Vaipai community in Churchandpur. Jessica has been providing counseling for displaced children from the Kukizod tribes. She has also been fundraising to provide looms and yarn to displaced women from her tribe, hoping this would help them generate some income for their families. Here is my interview with her. So, Moy, since the violence started in 2023, it's been more than 2 years now, right? And the context of this interview is that President's rule, which was imposed in February this year, has been extended by another 6 months. So I want to first know from you what that means for people here. And also, I want to know whether, when there was a long-standing demand from people from the Kukizod tribes that President's rule has to be imposed. And it was finally imposed in Feb. And a lot of people said it's too late, but people were welcoming of the initiative, right? At least from the hill districts. Has president's rule changed anything for people affected by this violence? So that's two questions.
Okay. First thing, of course, President rule has brought a big change. I think first thing is that it has stopped. The firing has stopped. Killing has stopped. It just halted, and that brought much relief to us, the people. And but then we had so much of expectation from president's rule, honestly, because we feel that if president's rule come, then it will come along with justice, it will come along with alternative arrangement for alternative livelihood arrangement for the displaced, and justice for the martyrs and everything. But till now, apart from the killing have stopped, we have not seen anything beyond that as yet. As grateful as we are for it, since we demanded for it, there is this very strong sense of disappointment also. That's how I feel.
So this extension of president's role by 6 months, it just, do you think that they're just, this extension means that they're just dragging the situation forward? Because if in the last 6 months not much has been done to help people who are the most vulnerable, then what is the point of president's role?
I come from a tribe that is amongst the most displaced, with over 100 villages lost and tens of thousands of displaced. And of course, since the PR surfaced, like I said earlier, the killing have stopped. But we should also know that this perpetuate the state of uncertainty for the many displaced people who are living in relief camps and cannot go back to their villages.
So when you say uncertainty, what do you mean?
Uh,
I'm just asking, it's a very obvious question, but I feel like people outside of Manipur don't understand what that means.
by uncertainty, meaning that there is this dilemma: ki, will we be able to embrace our own lives? Will we be able to go back to our own farms, our own homes, their own village? Because as much as they find new home here, they haven't found that belongingness here. Obviously, they it's their home, their village. They miss them, and they still live in hopes that someday they can go back. The government would bring a solution to this, a permanent solution, and not just keeping on delaying everything. And then
So basically, they are neither here nor there. They're stuck
yes,
in
yes,
between.
exactly, they're stuck in between of unable to fully embrace the new life here and fully forgetting the previous life in the previous village. And I think that it is very unfortunate that a big democratic country like India fails to solve I would say, a small state ethnic conflict. I think they are not paying attention to us at all.
Right. And in the context of the displaced people, there was an announcement that by December they'll be dismantling all the relief camps.
Right.
How are the people in the camps, especially from your own tribe, since you said many displaced people from your tribe are
Right.
in camps? How are they feeling about this announcement?
A few days ago, I met a lady from relief camp. She visited me in my home, and she was panicking. Honestly, she said she is not able to afford a rent. At the same time, there has not been a proper arrangement made for them, and at the same time, she is worried if all the food supplies that comes from the central government will be halted. There are a lot of questions.
Which have not been answered.
Yes, which have not been answered. And then there is this previous previous worries of not getting enough health care, and then scarcity of clean drinking water and enough food, and then there is another burden of finding a place to settle again.
I mean, when the announcement was made, they said that they will make alternative arrangements. I don't know what they mean. Do they mean that the alternate arrangement is that they will be, all these prefabricated homes that they'll be building? Is it going to be that? Because I have visited one of the settlements
In
in a White
Bollen,
village, yeah,
and then
where there's no water. They have to walk so long
yes,
to get water.
from the dam itself. Yeah.
So these prefabricated homes, alternative settlements, they are in places where there is no good connectivity. There is no supply to drinking water.
Yes.
So they are being built in the corners of districts,
Right.
Be it
Outskirts.
here, yeah. So I don't know what. There's no clarity, right? from the government itself
no,
about.
no, there is no clarity.
So in that, I mean, is it also a clear indication when they say alternative arrangements that these people won't be able to go back to their villages? Do you realistically see that happening?
With the current state that we are in, I don't think that the government is doing enough to help these people go back to their villages. But at the same time, they are also not doing enough to make a proper alternative arrangements for them here in this town.
Okay. So, I mean, I think our equally important question then is, since we're talking about uncertainty, and you also have been working with a lot of people who are displaced, right? Providing them with, trying to basically figure out whether you can create some sort of livelihood opportunity. Which brings us to the question of cash, which brings us to the question of whether people are able to, earn a livelihood. How is that like, otherwise when they were in their villages, they would have their own farm, they had food and they had supplies. But now livelihood is a big question mark. Has president's role answered that question? Have they created anything to help people earn some money? If they're saying that we will dismantle relief camps, are they also then solving for this?
It's very funny. I mean, because no, not at all. Nothing has been solved. We are facing a huge humanitarian crisis. Unemployment is a big thing now. Most of the youths in relief camp have left the place, have left this town, looking for daily wage work in outside of the state. And the sudden increment in population has led to like a crash in economy, and not just unemployment, but there's like there is challenges in all aspects of livelihood. And it's funny because the government doesn't seem to be at all concerned about all these things, and we are beginning to wonder, okay, if they are not concerned at all, or leaving us to fend for ourselves like this. And the state doesn't have much resources from on our own. Even most of the barren hills have been cultivated by displaced people. They have started cultivating rice, cabbage, potatoes, and I still have some vegetables as a gift from relief camps, like beans and all. And that's not enough to sustain them. There we are looking at all kinds of possibilities to sustain ourselves, but that is also still a challenge, because the state is very poor. I mean, the district is very poor, and all this sudden rise in population, sudden hunger, and we are like struggling.
What about medical facilities then? How has that? Because since we are talking about an overburdened district and not that many facilities, these 6 months, has that been addressed in these 6 months by the central government?
No, 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 not at all. It's if we go back even to pre-conflict times, most of the healthcare we were dependent in Imphal, the capital, and now with the conflict, the healthcare system has totally collapsed. We have over 90 deaths since the conflict in relief camps. We have we do the women and children, particularly in relief camp, doesn't have access to basic healthcare. Even paracetamol is care. We literally have to go and ask it to the army people for paracetamol, and then allergy medicine. So many times I have asked medicine from the army also. And with PR, yes, there were hopes. We were hoping, and it's obvious that we demand PR because we were hoping that something would be changed. But no, not at all. The healthcare has totally collapsed, and due to shortage of staff and infrastructure, we don't have so many facilities in this town, and we were totally dependent on Imphal. And with PR, we were hoping that at least the government will set up a temporary hospital of some kind or something like that. But no, nothing has changed. It has deteriorated, I mean, honestly.
Since you brought up this thing about women and children, right? I think one of something that we've very obviously seen over the last 2+ years is that a lot of young people have been affected in ways that are not understood or discussed openly. People have dropped out of school, people have lost their careers. They were about to finish their education, but they didn't. They've lost their careers. They've just gone on to working some temporary job just so that they can support their family. So, as a young person who is constantly trying to work with displaced people and other people from the community, what worries you the most?
There are a few things that keeps me awake at night. One of them is the education, the collapse in education. I had met so many young adults in relief camp who were in their final year of college, final year of secondary, who had to leave their homes. Apart from being displaced, apart from witnessing such a terrible thing in their life, they have to leave outside in search of job, leaving behind their uh, homes and families and their education, most importantly. And second thing is the mental health. I have had a lot of friends who suffers from PTSD, who suffer from anxiety and depression, because even in relief camps we have had children who doesn't want to go to school because they feel like the other children would know that their house has been burned down. They have this fear that they'll be looked down upon, and some of them have witnessed such a brutal killing in their life that they'll never, I don't think, will ever recover from this in their entire lives. There was this a boy of 4 that I spoke to, who told me that he watched his house being burned down, his pig and his dog being burned alive from a hilltop a little farther away from his village where they were hiding. He was so traumatized. Things like this, mental health care. As from the government, we don't have any hopes, but there is this hopes that we are a very resilient community. Of course, we have church, we have the social this society where we are hoping that we'll be healing as time goes by. But then I'm worried that this is going to scare them for the rest of their lives. And the third thing that worries me the most is the radicalization of the youths. As you know, the conflict has made many very young boys and girls pick up arms. And if the government fails to solve this problem, at least by this year, then I fear that most of the youth from this community, this town, would start picking up more guns instead of books, because they feel like the justice has been denied to them. They feel very unfair. There is anger in their voice when you speak to when you meet these very young volunteers. We can sense the resentment and hate and for another community or things like that. And as a concerned citizen, I'm very concerned that our boys, instead of studying or working, will resort to picking up arms and then feel that arm is the solution, like that, because there is no sense of justice from the government. Honestly, that's everyone knows that, and that, I think, is my biggest fear and concern.
So, from the time that the violence started, there was a lot of violence in, I think, close to a year. Things were just going back and forth. But after that, or even in between, there were these talks that would keep happening. Like people from the hills, leaders from the hills, be it the MLAs or the insurgent groups would meet with the MHA. Similarly, the Meitei groups would meet with the MHA, which is the Home Minister, representatives from the MHA, right? And these talks keep continuing. There seems to be talks that keep happening, but that there doesn't seem to be anything that's legitimately or like conclusively come out of it, be it in terms of what those talks are leading to or what those talks mean. And I mean this in a general way, not specific to this side or that side. Do you feel like there is a dearth of efficient leadership right now in Manipur? Political leadership.
I mean, I don't think it's about political leadership. I think the central government is like simply putting is simply delaying the talk. Through the talk, simply delaying the entire
Keeping
thing.
it stagnant.
Yes, stagnant, so that until we are too tired to fight, both sides. That is what I feel, and there is no solution at all. It's been almost 2.5 years now, and there is no sight of solution. So, but I feel like leaders from our community are trying in their own ways, but unfortunately from the government side, I don't think there is no sincere approach to solving this crisis. They are just delaying so that they I feel like they are feeling as though, okay, these people, let them keep coming to us until they are too tired to come to us. One day they will go back and they will manage, they will heal, like that. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I asked this is everybody seems to be from the BJP, right? All the leaders from the Meitei Valley side and the Kukizo side and the MHA and the state government, everybody is BJP. And yet, there are talks and there are multiple parties, and there doesn't
Right.
seem to be a consensus about anything. So I'm just like, is it that, like you say, is it that they're just keeping it, dragging it till people
Yes.
give up?
Yes.
Or is it that, they don't care enough? What is it? How can everybody be
I
from one party and still not be able to
I
solve
mean,
it?
it's evident that they don't care. And secondly, it's also evident that they are playing the delay tactics until we give up. And yeah, I don't know. As for me personally, I have no expectation that anything positive or anything beneficial for us is going to come out of this talk anymore. We have lost all hopes, honestly, from all these talks. Because the demand keeps getting milder and milder as day goes by. And I think that is what the central government is after. That is what they want.
Before I end this episode, I think it is critical that we appreciate the efforts and the resilience of women like Birju and Jessica, who have been consistent in their leadership through the last 2 years. It is not the establishment, but only people like them who have been the constant rays of hope for the most vulnerable in the state.